All right, brother. Open us up. Open us up today. Kick us off.
Welcome back to the Unscripted Exchanges show hosted by myself, Hayden Huber, and Cole Hazenfield. We have an action packed episode with a lot of trending and hot topics to dive into. Some really important topics that we want to dive a little bit deeper on, share our personal experiences, some opinions as well, and also some facts. So stay tuned for some awesome content coming up here. Cole, what do you got to share, man?
Well, you're laying it up for me, man. I think hat off to you. That sounded really crisp and clean. I do think that there's a few things we wanted to get into today, however you're listening to. Listeners, whether it's you're on your early morning jog, whether you're heading to work, whether you're taking a lunch break. There is some stuff today that we're going to talk about, and I'll kind of highlight the two, and then we can kind of jump in. One of them is actually around mental health. So I want to start with mental health. And Hayden and I were talking, and actually we kind of planned this episode out. We originally thought it might be Mental Health Awareness Month, but I did some research and we found out that wasn't the case. Turns out today, as we're recording this episode, is world. What is it? I wrote it down.
I think it's Mental
World
Health Awareness Day, right?
World Mental Health Day.
Wow.
World Mental Health Day. Yeah, it was almost like it was meant to be. And I think Hayden, at least for me, and I know you can speak to it too, but this topic, this conversation around mental health, that it plays a major part in like all of our lives. But I feel like it's something that we're all touched by. People that mental health is a thing that isn't just for the people that are necessarily open about dealing with anxiety or depression or anything. I think if you go through any family or any group of friends, and you go a couple extensions out, we have all been touched probably some way or another by a form of negative or tough mental health situations. And for me, it hits really close to home. It's something that I've been blessed to have some very good people in my life and good genes a and the ability to not have to deal with that, or the blessing to not have to really deal with really bad anxiety or deep dark holes of depression. I've got anxiousness like everybody else does. Everybody's got anxiousness to some degree or another. But I've never had to really, really deal with it. But I do have people in my life that I've seen struggling with it. And it's something that's really near and dear to my heart that, I think we both wanted to get into today.
Yeah, man. I think mental health is definitely not a light topic. So want to first off just highlight the fact that this is going to be probably a more serious conversation. I know every now and then you and I kind of keep it lighthearted, but this conversation tonight's probably going to be a little bit more serious and at times vulnerable. If we decide to share any personal experiences or stories, now we probably want to respect other people. So also want to make sure that we call that out, and that's more so a note to you, Cole, to think about that if you're allowed to share whatever you want to share. But anyhow, I think where I would first kind of start is just the fact that mental health, as you also highlighted, Cole, it's prominent in everyone's life. I think people today would associate mental health with like a negative connotation, and I don't think it should be seen that way. We all have to recognize that mental health should be our top priority, because it is one of the foundational building blocks to just living a successful and meaningful life. And if you are struggling with your mental health, it's going to bleed into other aspects of your life, which is going to thus cause you not to live your best life and really struggle. And at times we all struggle, but where you and I maybe want to start to kind of highlight some things are maybe some strategies, coping mechanisms. First off, we're also not doctors here, but we do just want to have that conversation. I think that's the first step towards just beating the stigma of mental health is a bad thing or there's a negative connotation.
Well, I wouldn't even add to that, Hayden, to second your point. I think the first thing you said really sticks with me. It almost gives me chills, and it might be partly because I'm sitting outside because I love the vibe out here and I like being outdoors. But it truly the belief that that negative connotation, right? Anytime somebody brings up mental health, it's like, oh, well, we must be talking about depression and anxiety and all and those kind of bubbles, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, right? Everybody goes immediately to like these drastic measures, but I think there's a lot more aspects of mental health that and mental fitness, I would
Mm-hmm.
even call it, right? Mental
I
fitness
like that.
that go come into play that aren't necessarily like these drastic, anxiety or depression, but little things like the ability to look at things positively, the ability to see the good versus the bad, the ability to push past adversity. Those are all part, I believe, of mental health or mental fitness aspects that I think we don't talk about a lot. But I think today specifically, I think it's good to dive into, some of the more serious things. And then, where I see going with this conversation, Hayden, was what are some mechanisms and some things that you can do that we believe that have worked for us, we've seen work for others, and also what I believe, and especially has been prominent in my life, is how do you support others who are going through different phases or mental health or battles mentally, right? Whether it's feeling really down and thinking that they're depressed, or feeling really anxious, or you know battling with self-image issues, or whatever the case is. How do you support others? How do you, as a human being, as a father, a mother, a sister, a brother, an aunt, uncle, a friend, how do you provide support or love to people that sometimes can't love themselves? That's something to me that's a big gut turner for me, and also something that I think is important for us all to know is that when we have others that are struggling, what can we do?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is listen, right? Listen to your loved ones or whomever and just try to empathize as best as you can. Let the other party kind of share what they feel comfortable sharing. And, you on the receiving end don't have to always understand every little detail, but just be there to listen, because that in itself is like a really good healthy practice of just having someone there to talk to. And if you are the person that's dealing with mental health issues, or you're struggling, sometimes just the simple act of talking out loud and sharing that with someone else kind of starts to beat down that voice inside your head that sometimes it can be just obnoxious, and it's really not that big of a deal. Not to oversimplify what someone could be dealing with, but the first thing that I would recommend is just be there to listen to someone. And then kind of the next step would be like, hey, like what resources could I potentially pass along and share with a loved one? Um, as we've both highlighted, look, we all have our own comprehension of what good mental health means for us. And I would state that the best person that can help you manage your mental health is you. I mean, and I think that's really challenging for some depending on what state of mind they might be in. But if they can start to recognize that and understand that, what, the person that is most responsible for how I'm feeling, how I'm processing things is myself. How do I internalize these messages that might be floating around in my brain? The person you're going to know the longest in your life is yourself. So you got to try to have those healthy conversations inside your mind. Now, every now and then you're going to have just bizarre, goofy thoughts, whether they're mean comments that your brain's telling you like, oh, I don't look good today. Like, you got to try to understand that, hey, this is just a thought, recognize it, move on. Don't try to, accept it as, oh, this could be true. If it is, like, it's tough how I'm articulating this, because I too have had, interesting thoughts from time to time, and you can sometimes get caught up in, ruminating, oh, is that a true thought? And it's like, look, it's just a thought. We can't always control what's floating around in our brain, but the moment you kind of just take a step back and say, look, I am not my thoughts. These are just, thoughts. I have the discipline or the free will, the choice to, act on an action, or just, again, it's a passing thought. And another tactic, and again, speaking from just experience, whenever I've dealt with whatever has been going on with me, is I write things down. So again, going back to that example of, oh, I don't look good today. Like, I write that down on a piece of paper, and then, like, I say it out loud. And then you start to laugh at how just silly of a comment that is in your
Well,
brain.
it's the point of, like, talk to yourself. Like, would you talk to somebody else that way? I can't remember how I watched. I saw this, like, clip, and the guy's like, it was an actor, or like a comedian or something. He's like, imagine if you were talking to other people like you sometimes talk to yourself, like, you fat piece of shit. You wouldn't say that to somebody's face. So
Mm-mm.
why are you telling yourself that? It's self-talk. And I think even more to kind of add weight to your point, Hayden, because I like that. I love the call out you've got about, it's in your head. It's a thought. It's you have control of that. And I'm gonna say, what would I say? What would I say to people that say, well, I can't control it? There are some mechanisms that I've read about, and I've gone and seen a therapist. I'll be totally upfront about it. I've Whenever I've had, and not because something was drastically wrong or that I was so down. It's because I know that I can't function as a human being, as a father, as a parent, as a friend, if my head's not right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm so in my head that I can't be a good to outward, to my family, to my friends, to my wife, to my daughters. Like, I had to get. So it was about 5 or 6 years ago.
It sounds
I was
like you
just
want to
going
bring
through
your best self to the table, is what I'm hearing. And how do you go?
100%.
Yeah.
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 Like, to me, again, I'm going to make this comment, right? Some of us, and we'll get into, I think at the back end of this, maybe we'll talk about how physical fitness can impact, and maybe some different therapies in the physical realm of things.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, a lot of people these days are so worried about physically what they look like, right? Like, we're also worried about, like, I just want to look good. I want to pump my body up. And there is, like, so many benefits to exercise and physical fitness to your mental health. I read this one, and I'm kind of going on a rabbit hole here, but I was reading this article in Mayo Clinic about the exercise, what it does for the brains. And I think, most society does know to some degree that as exercise and getting active releases different chemicals, right? It helps release and get the chemicals, right, endorphins moving in your body. One of the actually statistics now on Mayo Clinic is that, and I'm going to get a little bit even deeper with this, was that it has the effect of a cannabis like treatment, meaning, like, people that have smoked a lot of dope or weed, or if you ever partaken in that, it actually has the kind of effect that, like, a positive high would have.
Hmm.
It's that calming. It releases a chemical similar to what cannabis does. Not kidding you. You guys can look me up on this. Crazy, crazy stat, crazy statistic. Um, but what I was kind of circling around to is that people that would say, well, I can't get out of my own head, right? I just can't. When I get in that moment or in that mode, one of the practices that the doctor, and I want to name her, but I won't, but she was a rock star. She, right here in Cincinnati, she taught me how to do military breathing. And look it up. I'm not going to get into exactly how to do it, but it's basically 3 to 5 minutes of breathing exercises. It's like meditation, but it's focusing only on your breath. And it not only helps to kind of calm your mind, but it creates a type of a release of certain chemicals in your body and brain to actually help you overcome those negative chemical releases. So like there are things like that that are out there. So I would say, to our listeners that, because I first want to say I know people that when they're down like that, they can't get out of it. But there are methods and practices. They don't work for everybody, but I would 100%. And maybe following this episode, I'll try to do a little quick 30-second synopsis of it, do some homework, and maybe share a link of how to do this military breathing, because that's how they like military. They taught it military. And if you're in the military, we appreciate you. People in the military and armed services, they do this when they're in battle to calm down, to be calm and collected, so they're not running around shooting their own, shooting at random and getting themselves blown up. So it's a legitimate like method. Really, really, really cool stuff. So I would say I wanted to add some tactical methods to like, hey, I can't get out of my own head. What's something I can stop and do um, to actually try to flip that switch faster than just telling myself, well, it's just a thought. Because I think there are people out there like that can't do that, and then for the people that can, that can put it in perspective. I like the write it down, and I'd say even one step further, write it down and cross it out. Write it down, look at it, read it out loud, and then crumple that paper up and throw it away. Because 9 times out of 10, what you're thinking in that moment is not really truly how you feel about yourself or the situation.
Yeah. And again, just to reemphasize some of the points that we've made up to this point, these are just potential ideas that you could try and implement. We're not saying that these are bulletproof. These are just experiences that Cole and I have tried and we've found, successful more times than not. So again, just want to be very clear that we're not saying that if you go do this, this is going to fix all of your problems. These are just some mechanisms that you can try to potentially move the needle and, make your mental health better if you're feeling a little bit down, let's say, or something like that. I think I'd also add the first step is recognizing whether or not like you're in a good mood or a bad mood. And let's just go down the unhappy path. Let's say you're not having a great day or you're not feeling well. You've got some negative emotions. Like recognizing that is awesome. Like that is the first step. Then I would tell other people, okay, what choices have I made in the last 24 hours? Like start to play it back. What have I done over the last 48 hours? Heck, maybe even the last week. Like take stock or inventory and kind of how you're living your life and like have a diary. Like I've done this from time to time. I mean, I don't do it every day, but like when I've gone through just some interesting like, personal health things, it's like, all right, yeah, Hayden, what did I do yesterday? Oh, I consumed, this is just an example, 600 milligrams of caffeine. Well, that's probably going to get me a little bit anxious. And again, that's just an
Right.
example. Or for those that, choose to partake in drinking alcohol, like that just heightens your anxiety. So like, people refer to Sundays as the Sunday scaries because you're literally trying to detox from all the crap that you've put in your system. If you feel so shitty and low from a night out, common sense tells me, hey, maybe I should cut back on the alcohol. We aren't saying that you have to make drastic changes to not stop drinking. Like live your life, do what you think is best. But if you're seeing a repeat pattern of behavior and you're feeling like shit, and again, these are just examples trying to make our point here, maybe you got to start tweaking the recipe of what you're doing and what you're putting into your body. So again, alcohol is an example. Food can also play a big role in how your body reacts and how you might be feeling. I mean, there's so many different avenues that we can go down, Cole.
Well, I think I like that you highlighted that. The look back at the last 24, even 48 hours,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of the times you can actually like, and I had this conversation with somebody recently, which I'm not going to just name drop, but they're having a rough time, right? Having a down day,
Yeah.
down a couple days. And I'm like, well, like, have you been exercising? Well, not really, because I work from home. Well, have you been drinking a lot? Yeah, a little bit. And okay. You know, like how busy you at work? Not that busy. I said, you've been watching a lot of Netflix and stuff. Yeah. And these are like, this is not me being like judgmental or precocious. Like
No, not at
this
all.
is me going, this is me going, I know when I'm a shithole and I sit around and watch too much Netflix, my brain goes, "Durr," and you can watch some stuff that's like good for you, right? But and I'm not saying media is bad. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I love that call out because what a lot of us do is just want to say, and I'm not saying it's not always the case, but a lot of the times we're having a bad day, we want to go, man, I just we want to add to it. We pour gasoline on the fire, right? We say, oh, I'm gonna have hard time. I just have anxiety, and I'm gonna pour gas on it. I'm gonna make it even worse by saying I have a problem, and a lot of the times it can be a symptom of what we've done. So by being self-aware and taking those steps, you might be able to nip it in the butt. And I would say like eating food specifically, like I can relate to that. If I don't, when I wake up in the morning, sometimes if I had a late dinner, my body died, and this is very specific. If I eat dinner like super late, and let's say like spaghetti
Mm-hmm.
in garlic bread at like 9 o'clock at night, right? It's a lot of carbs. Wait right before I go to bed. My body's going to be processing that while I'm sleeping. I'm going to wake up and my blood sugar level by 9 or 9:30, if I don't get food, is going to drop. So by 10:30 or 11, I'm literally like shaking. My heart's racing because I've had caffeine, but I haven't thrown my whole body off. So blood sugar levels, and specifically like if you're not putting the right stuff in a lot of times, those levers can literally make you feel anxious. Like you will feel anxious. You ever heard of like being hangry? Like literally, when you're hangry, you feel anxious. So I just like that call out. I mean, and again, you know, I think we say it again and again and again, but we're not experts. But this is, these are some real life things that we've seen that work that we
Yeah,
know.
I like the build on all of that. I mean, you called out the word self aware. Like, just be more self aware with kind of how you're feeling, what you're doing, and start to play around with, okay, if I'm eating this and I'm feeling this way, why don't I try doing something different? Like, that is the first step in making change in your life. We're not trying to tell you got to make these drastic changes. And again, we're trying to just appeal to people that might be struggling, or just want to take overall better stock in their mental health and their health in general. So again, we're not trying to get up here virtue signaling saying that, we've got it all figured out. As we've said time and time again, we're not doctors, we're not health professionals, but we do want to kind of just, again, talk about the subject of mental health because it is so important for all of us. I like your call outs, Cole, around, was I watching a lot of Netflix? Was I not moving? Was
Simple
I not
stuff.
working out? Like, literally come up with a framework. And like, those are perfect, examples right there. Okay. One lever is, am I getting exercise? You could keep this pretty binary. If the answer is yes or no, and then you move on to, okay, am I eating healthy? What is defined as eating healthy? We'll leave that up for another, conversation, but each person to, live your life, do what you think is best. But am I eating healthy? Am I living in the real world, or am I spending too much time in the digital world? Like, those would be to me like three big buckets to kind of like diagnose, okay, look, I've binged watched a Netflix series for the last 10 hours. I didn't work out today, and I just ate a whole bunch of potato chips, drank a couple of pops. Again, this is a hypothetical, but that person is probably going to be a little bit more anxious than the person that chose to, go out, spend some time with family or friends for a couple of hours. They took a walk in the park or something. You don't have to go out and do something extreme depending on what your fitness level is, or, someone that chooses to go out for a run. There's so many different levers, and figure out what those levers are for you.
I think the thing to note too, Hayden, um, and again, we aren't experts, but I will say like having done a ton of research and been, I would say I'm a secondary, it's a part of my life. So I think we both have had it in our lives, so we can speak to it to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
I think the call out of um specifically like we're talking about those things that we've looked back on.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to reiterate that when you're feeling down like that, it is mental health and these things. Mental health like changes and fluctuates based off of chemicals being released in your body. It is a chemical thing. It is not a like, oh, they're just a wimpy or like that dude just, that dude just needs to be a man. Like that's not the case, like absolutely at all. But by pulling the right levers, you're actually making your body produce the right stuff and giving yourself a better chance of being able to attack that head on or deal with that stuff better. That is not me guessing. That is not Hayden guessing. That is not, I'm being a little confident right now, but that is factual that our bodies run based off of chemicals that are introduced. Now, some of us may not be able to produce those chemicals ourselves, no matter what we do. And in that case, like again, whatever everything we're saying, you could try it all and maybe it doesn't work, and you got to add something else to the mix. But that's where professionals and medication do come into play. I mean, there are people that it just doesn't work. But I think for a lot of us, it there's definitely ways we can help out with that. I wanted to point out too, Hayden. I don't know if we've talked about this before. You ever heard of Talkspace?
I have, but I do want to jump in real quick and
Go ahead
add
first.
a
Go ahead.
comment, and then we can get into Talkspace and whatnot. I think we've also highlighted this on a previous episode. I love the call out that, hey, for some folks, it might mean you need to look at taking medications. This might trigger some people, not trying to trigger anyone, but I would recommend that you look at other alternatives before you resort directly to medication. I understand that that might be a very hot take or controversial for some people out there. As Cole, you mentioned, some people have a tougher time having certain chemicals processed in their brain and whatnot. So they've got that imbalance, and that's why those medications do help. I recognize that. But for a lot of people, I would first highlight, hey, take stock in your diet, your lifestyle, the things that we've kind of just been throwing out as potential examples before you go try to find some quick and easy solution. Those solutions might be temporary, like Band-Aids, and in the long run, it's going to end up hurting you. I know that's tough to hear for some people, but you don't want to be dependent on certain medications if you don't have to be. For some people, sure, that is fine. That's the right thing for you to do. But I just want to be clear that if you're someone that's maybe struggling or whatnot, and you're like, yeah, you know what? If I go out and take pill A or pill X, like it's going to solve all my problems, I would caution you, again, not a doctor here, but probably not going to get the results that you're looking for, at least not right away. And okay, if you do get those results right away, I bet you're going to end up becoming immune to some extent where you're going to want an increase in milligrams. And at some point, like your body like can only process so much of those like chemicals that you're putting back into your body. So again, just recognize that and be careful and figure out what's best for you.
Well, dude, think about this. Think about this, Hayden. What is the first thing a doctor asks you when you go to the doctor and you say, hey, I'm not feeling great. Well,
What'd you
what kind of
eat?
medication have you been
Yeah.
taking?
Yeah.
What have you been doing?
Yeah.
You've been eating. I've noticed, you know what I mean? Your doctor's going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, and a lot of us, we got to be honest. Like, if you decide you want to go see a specialist and talk to them about it, before you just say, hey, you just a lot of us tend to say, well, we've tried everything. Look internally and say, have I really tried what I need to try and made the change I need to make? And I think that also brings up a final point. I think we're going to probably just talk all about mental health today. I don't think we're going to get into even physical fitness today. We've touched on it a bit. But another thing, Hayden, I think I'd point out, and maybe you can add some. I'd like to hear your commentary on this. A big thing for me is also a big impact is our outside influences. I don't want to even touch social media and stuff today. We've talked about that so much, how social media can be bad, yada, yada. You know what? We've beat that drum. I want to talk about how our network influence is our influences our behavior and can also add to the problems that we might be dealing with.
Damn, that's a powerful conversation right there. I mean, yeah, I think more times than not, we are a byproduct of our environment and those that we associate with and have in our network. You know, who are our mentors? Who are we spending most of our time with? Again, this might be challenging for some folks, but you know, and speaking from experience too, I've referred, and Cole, we've had conversations. I used to have drinking buddies and friends. I'm no longer friends with those people. I wish them the best, no harm or anything like that. I want to be clear on that, which I really don't need to, but we're not friends. You know, these were people that we would go out and grab beers, and you know, sometimes that could lead into behaviors or feelings that I didn't want to experience any longer. So, just understanding that it's really important to be surrounding yourself with a very tight camp of people that want to see you live your best life and, you know, help others out in return too. So it's really important to make sure that you look around and you take stock in who are my closest friends. You know, do I align with their values? Do I align with what they're doing? And some of that takes time and maturity to recognize. And it's a struggle for a lot of us. I mean, I'm raising my hand too, but you know, I kind of look back and kind of dealt with that. And it's like, look, you know, these people are probably people that I need to be stopped. I need to stop hanging around them because there's things that they're getting into that I don't want to be a part of, and it just doesn't make me live my best life. So
I would add, I would second that wholeheartedly. One of the action items I would give people, or one of the things that I've learned over the years, Hayden, um, from my own life experience. Again, we're young, but from my experience, you know, relationships ebb and flow
hmm.
where you're at in life, right? You have people come in to life at certain points of time
Look at
that
us,
are
for
great.
example, right? 10
Yeah,
year
right.
gap.
Well, there's relationships that are good
Yeah.
for certain parts of your life, right? This was
Yep.
great when I was here.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yep.
know, when I was 20 years old and this was the situation I was in, this is the relationship I needed.
Yep.
Um, and you've got to be okay with evolving
Mm.
and moving forward in life,
Yep.
and I want to put asterisks beside this because it's not just so black and white, but you've got to be okay with moving on from those relationships. What I don't mean is go look at your Rolodex of friends and say, I hate this person. I hate this person's out. This person's out. This one. Here's my pros and cons list. I'm not saying that because it's not that black and white. But what I am saying is look at yourself and say, where do I want to be in my life? Because where am I going to be the best version of myself that is fulfilled, that is happy, that is on the track I want to be on? And once you identify that and you put yourself in those situations, the friends and the family and the people that need to be in your life will be there because they're aligned on that path with you. It from my experience, and there are some that you've got to shove out, right? You've got to shove out. But a lot of the times too, once you've aligned with who you want to be, you don't have to have that conversation with the buddy. You don't even have to make it this big ordeal where you sit down and start writing names off a list and saying this one's out, this one's out, this one's out. But once you identify who you are and who you want to be and where you want to go, um, that's a big step towards figuring out where your network needs to be. I think a lot of us get scared of, like, especially at younger ages. I'm gonna say college. I'm gonna go to the college kids. Yeah, you're coming out of college. It's scary. It's scary for anybody that's in their junior, senior year of college. That's getting ready to go in the real world, right? The real world. That is a scary time, but I want you guys to know that, like, there's life beyond college. You're going to make new relationships. You're going to have new friends, and some of those friends that you made are going to be there for the rest of your life,
Mm-hmm.
but they're going to go off and do their same thing too. And that's, like, perfectly okay. That's not something to look back on and feel down about and feel sad about. It's something to relish and say, this was a great time in my life. Now let's move on to the next one. And I think where I've seen a lot of kids coming out of college have a hard time is transitioning and saying, okay, I have to leave some of that behind and move forward. But I don't want to, but I know I have to. And that's what causes a lot of stress. So I just want to say something about that. I think that's pretty bad.
Man, those are all phenomenal points. I couldn't say it any better with how you presented that. I mean, again, going back to my personal experience, I would say that one, I had to recognize who was the person that I wanted to be 2 years from now, um, and kind of list out those values. Again, this is kind of how I went about it. Again, you could say it's probably not that black and white, but again, just bear with me here as I explain this. Like, okay, these are the behaviors that I possess today as a 20-year-old. These are the behaviors that I want to possess when I'm 23, when I'm getting out into the quote unquote the real world. And what is it going to take for me to start making those changes in my life? And a lot of us don't like those changes because we are used to what we're doing. And sometimes we get caught up in feeling just comfortable and we don't want to, rock the boat too much. So, point being, if you do want to take that next step, and I'm still trying to evolve with where I am today, it's me looking ahead to who do I want to be 5 years from now? Okay, I've got a list of these values and these traits that I want future Hayden to be, these goals, and I need to start executing and acting on that as soon as I can. That is my vision or my goal of how I'm going to evolve and become a better person. If I don't have that roadmap, then I'm going to get lost and I'm probably not going to end up achieving the person that I want to ultimately be. The other thing that I'll add as a call out to is if you do fall short of that person that you want to be, that's all right. That's life, But
It
at
might
least,
change
yeah,
too.
yeah, you're striving towards being a better version of yourself, and just understand that you've got to work with yourself. Highlight, what are my behaviors? What are my new behaviors that I want to take on? How do I become better? And if you fall a little bit short, that's all right. You're going to be 10 times better than who you were 2 years ago. So.
I just want to say this. If people listening, keywords there, and we all struggle with this. What Hayden is saying right there, the biggest message to take out of that, you versus you.
Yep.
Not you versus John, not you versus your buddy, not you versus your parents. It's you versus you. Who do you want to be and how you gonna move towards that? And guess what? Like if you're challenging yourself and comparing you to you, like, you know, it's that to me is the biggest challenge in life is to go, okay, who do I want to be and how am I going to challenge myself every day? It's a very big shift for a lot of us this day and age to not look at everybody else. But I think what I took out of that, Hayden, is that look at what you want to do and where you want to be, and focus your energy on that and how can you better those aspects. But don't look outside of that. I mean, great. It's great to see people and notice people and think, and this is fair and want things, but don't align your values with what other people have or what other people are doing, because that's a recipe for disaster in my opinion.
I think there's a simple saying out there, like comparisons rob you of joy. There's always a time and place to maybe compare yourself depending on what the context is. But obviously, the way that we're talking here, like compare yourself to the person that you were in the past or who you're trying to be in the future. Like that, there's nothing unhealthy about that versus, oh, I need to compare myself to Cole. Like, I could, but why? Like compare
We're
Hayden
two
to
different
Hayden. Right.
people, right?
Exactly. And
Right.
that's the beautiful thing about life is like we all have a unique purpose here on earth. As cliche as that sounds, like it takes time to figure that out. And I've shared this with my siblings, like, look, I don't always know what I want to do when I grow up. I say that and I'm, almost 30 years old here. And I love that. Like it's all right to not know always the answers to things, but if as long as you're willing to grow as a human being and kind of try to step out of your comfort zone, there's a lot of good that's going to come from that.
Amen. Amen, man. Wish I had a whole chorus singing hallelujah behind me. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more, man. Couldn't agree more.
I say we save the physical health or physical fitness for another episode.
We got to do a deep dive. I had some really good notes on that too, but I'll save them.
Don't lose those, man. Don't let the dogs eat those.
The dog ate my homework.
We had to lighten up the episode at the end here, folks, because we were just talking so seriously the whole time.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, yeah, awesome episode, Hayden. Thanks for diving into that with me, man.
Yeah, no,
Great time.
I
Great
en-
conversation.
I enjoy talking about this topic because, as you said, it hits close to home for us, and we've dealt with things too in our lives, and we've been blessed to be in the position that we are. But it's extremely important to recognize not only your mental health, but others as well, and try to help people along the way.
So I'm gonna close us out, Hayden.
Do
I'm
it.
gonna end it with one thing. Take everything we said with for what it is. Experience, some knowledge we've got, some real world experience. We don't know everything, but we know a little bit about this topic through not only research but direct experience. I want anybody listening that is going through something or feeling some sort of way to try and be honest with yourself in the situation that you're in. Try to be self aware and know whether or not you do need help and make a plan to go get that. Whether it's addressing your habits, whether it's addressing your relationships, whether it's addressing the fact that those things aren't the only problem and you need to seek some help. There are so many resources out there, and this thing you can never say this enough. See, listeners, you are not alone dealing with mental health. It is not something that you're walking that path alone. There are other people walking it with you, and there are a lot of resources and support mechanisms out there. So I just want to make that very clear. As mental health awareness day around the world. It's touched my life and it's touched all of our lives. So just take care of yourself. Make sure to put your mental health first and really make that effort and make the changes you guys need to make. So thanks for listening once again.
Thank you guys, and we'll talk to you on the next episode. God bless.